think it's going to be good. It's good to meet you. You know?
We're going to get started. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to open. 2 minutes to open. And we'll start with Mr. Stracuzzi.
Hello, I'm Natale, Stracuzzi. I'm a resident of Ward 8, and I have to thank the Islamic Heritage Museum for having us here this evening, and Mr. Barnes and such for hosting the event for us as a sponsor. I have to think it's been a great session. I'd like to first take a moment to recognize those people in Hurricane Sandy and what they're going through, and just think about them and just have a moment of silence for those people, because again, it is something tragic. Okay.
We won't count that against you.
All right, thank you. All right. I'm going to base on the fact that we have to work till 70 hours for Social Security. And I just think government doesn't appreciate the working class. There used to be the Americans would bend over backwards for this country and do whatever they wanted. But it's gotten to the point that people no longer do that. Why? Because we keep taking from them. And I feel if our government invests in all these entities that they do in corporate America, which I have no problem for if we're gaining something out of it. They say Social Security can't be saved. I'm a mechanic by trade, and I came up with a concept. I feel we give $8 billion to a company in Atlanta to build a nuclear power plant. The state gives them 6, they put up 6. It's always 2/3 state and federal, 1/3 private industry. Those investments can pay higher dividends to our Social Security recipients. How's it failing? Those investments can pay 100% of their health care. How's it failing? Also, I'm going to remand the fact that we work till 70. Think about this realistically. You got kids with a 3.7 to 4.0 grade point average. These kids could get a free ride on the taxpayer to State or City University. They are the future. Always in our country, we take from the 2 most important people in our life. Our children, which are the people that are going to bring us to where we're going, and then the elderly, the people that brought us to where we're at. And that's where we need to become more humane as a nation. On top of that, I want to make government profitable. Why does the working class always get stuck with the bill? Let's look at FEMA right now, the natural disaster is going on. They're going to have to come back for more money, based on the fact why? Because insurance companies don't do their part, realistically. And I feel that FEMA should take 1/3 of its budget and put it in the stock market. And safe investments, like the banks did to gain money on the no interest money we gave them. By doing so, we build a budget surplus. FEMA will just apply for those funds at that point, that year, instead of coming back and asking for more funds out of the taxpayer. And on top of that, we could take 10% of those funds to pay off our deficit.
Thank
Because
you,
again,
Mr. Stark.
we have to change.
Thank you. Mr. Fleming, introduce yourself.
All right. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
All right. My name is Nate Bennett Fleming, and I'm a Ward 8 native. I currently live actually about 5 minutes up the road on Morris Road, and I'm the Democratic nominee for the position of U.S. Representative. Raise your hand if you're familiar with the shadow representative position. Have you heard of it before? Okay, most of us are familiar with the position. And the other candidate on the ballot is Ms. Aiken here. And I want to begin by thanking her for running for this office. I think the shadow positions, it takes a certain amount of dedication and commitment to offer yourself to be a candidate for that type of position. So I want to thank her for running for this office. For myself, I've been involved with this issue for about 10 years. My initial involvement was as an intern for Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton. And I think I'd be a good candidate for this position because I had campaign experience. I worked on the Kerry campaign, the Ben Cardin for Senate campaign, all on senior levels. I also have academic legal experience. I graduated from law school at the University of California, Berkeley. I'm currently an adjunct professor at the Public Law School at the University of the District of Columbia School of Law. And also, I have experience in Congress. I work for 2 congressional relations firms. I've worked for members of Congress. I've worked for members of the D.C. Council and the legislative tip. In terms of if I'm elected, what I would like to do, I think our movement has gone off course ever since the Congress forbade us from spending our own money for statehood. So ever since we've done that, our movement has been somewhat sidetracked. So what I want to do is strengthen our movement in several ways. But the most important part, which I'll talk about once we get here is starting with our young people and making sure that our young people know about this movement and our young people are participating in this movement, and we're preparing our next generation for service in this movement. And also we should leverage young people throughout the country, because we need to build a nationwide movement. And I think young people are the type of people that have the time and have the idealism that we can leverage so we can have a nationwide movement for statehood.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett Fleming. Ms. Aiken.
I think that's nice. That was good. That was good.
Yeah.
I ended on time. Huh?
I appreciate your support, and these jobs, we don't get paid, so we're just doing it because we believe in it. That's me, Mr. Schwartz, Schwartzman? No, not Schwarzenegger, got that one wrong.
Reminds me of him.
At any rate, I spoke rather extensively about Social Security at the P. Green Center. Was anybody in that room when I was speaking then? Okay. So I had brought some literature on that. There's not room to put it out, but if anybody has Social Security as an issue, see me afterwards and I'll give that to you. There is a lot of detail about my personal history and the things I stand for. My brochure is over there. I have a blog. I have like 29 posts on that blog, and you can find out all about me. Is there anybody here who does not have access to a computer? Okay, everybody has access. Fantastic. Okay, now what would I do if I got this wonderful job? First of all, I understand that there is a bill, H.R. 265, called the New Columbia Admission Act. So far, it has 28 sponsors. I was up there at up on the hill at an environmental meeting, and I went down and I wrote down information about the 28 sponsors, because I figured the best thing to do is go see them and see if they have some of their buddies who would also sign on. And Mr. Schwartzman hopefully will be the Senate representative, and if he's not, I will work with whoever is. And they need a companion bill, and they need sponsors too. So that's the kind of thing that we can do as lobbyists up there. The other thing that's unique for me is that Puerto Rico is having a referendum on the November 6th to see if they will choose to be try to be states or independent or something in between. My daughter-in-law lives there with my son and my 2 grandchildren. She is the granddaughter of the poet laureate of Puerto Rico and a very famous freedom fighter who actually did prison time because of his freedom fighting activities. And there's been some really funny legal stuff going on. But people, especially in the Green Party, we know about funny legal stuff, so I want to find out more. So if they go for statehood, I'm going to go down there, I'm going to visit my family, but I'm going to go make connections with the parties that are down there that are interested in statehood, because I think coming in jointly, we could both be able to enhance our struggle to become states.
Thank you, Ms. Aiken. I'll go to Puerto Rico with you. Denise Jenkins has the first question.
All right, I want to ask each candidate. During the time of Julius Hobson, Josephine Butler, Jesse Jackson, Hilda Mason, the statehood movement was hot. How can we get there again? What are you going to do in office to make the statehood issue hot first on the front burner? What are you going to do?
8 minutes, Fleming, 1 minute.
Okay, I think something I spoke about in my opening statement, which is in the 90s, when the Republicans took over the Congress, one of the things that they did, they forbade us from spending our own money on this issue. So previously, our fight for enfranchisement was a priority, one of the main priorities of the government, both in resources, but also on the agenda. When they forbade us from doing that, our enfranchisement slipped down on the agenda, and the momentum that it takes from the leadership level just wasn't there. In my time back in this movement, ever since I finished law school, there's been increasing momentum, as you've seen from the top leadership in the city, the chairman, and the mayor. So what we had to do is take that momentum and then tell them to put some resources behind that. And I'm going to be pushing for those resources in office. I think my lobbying of members of the city council and my lobbying of the mayor is going to be probably more important in how we influence the movement than our lobbying of Congress. As to the points that Ms. Aiken just spoke about, those co-sponsors, those 29, I did a lot of work to help get those 29 co-sponsors, meeting with members of Congress, working with the DC Statehood Coalition at the CBC. And in terms of Puerto Rico, one thing that we've done is started the DC Statehood Students Association, a mirror of the Puerto Rico Statehood Students Association, to help build the momentum and establish links with Puerto Rico. So I
Thank
think
you,
that's a
Mr.
good
Bennett
point.
Fleming. Ms. Aiken, 1 minute.
Okay, now what was it?
How are you going to bring the energy back to the statehood movement?
Okay. Well, I'm an energetic person. I think I can bring energy. So
And bring it out from out you and spread it around. How are you
Spread
going to
it
do
around.
that? But how are
Okay.
you going to do that?
well, of course, obviously coming to public events and talking about it, recruiting people to work as volunteers, because if we're going to get these people to sign up to be sponsors, doors have to be knocked on. Administrative assistants need to be talked to, and we need to have more citizen involvement within the city. I've been here 50 years. I've never been able to vote for the money that I gave the government. And, and that's another issue, which I won't go into right now. But the most important thing is that it's very important that we clean up our political house. And one thing about the Statehood Green Party, we do not accept corporate contributions. And I don't think we're going to have anybody going to jail anytime soon. And the Green Party, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, was the only party at their national convention that has statehood for DC as an issue on the party platform.
Thank you, Ms. Aiken. Mr. Stracuzzi,
Well,
1 minute.
I have a different analogy of how to do it. First of all, we have to look at.
Now, you're not
Congress as a
running
whole.
against these
No,
two
I'm not.
people.
I'm running against Ms. Norton, against her seat, based on the fact, again, we have to work for 70. And again, I claim victory in forums against her, and she's afraid and to come out and see me. And next year, watch the chicken-mobile hit the road with her face on it, because she's afraid to be here. But what I say, first of all, is we have to look at it realistically. They don't understand why we want to be a state. We preach democracy, but they won't give it to us. I'll work diplomatically with them on Capitol Hill to try to make this happen. But again, if I get elected, I have a different solution. We don't have a vote and we're not needed. I plan on hiring a lobbyist. We're going to be the lobbyists for the people of this District of Columbia and of the United States. First, I'm going to hire an economist, financial analyst, constitutional law attorney on staff. When we're not working on committees, we're going to dissect those bills. We're going to expose which congressmen and which senators give up their votes for earmarks. Because I'm sorry, lobbyists are here to stay, but we can get rid of politicians who don't do our work. And we can publish that data in those states by letting those people know what they're doing for them in those states. And by doing so, we'll elect new people into office, Democrat, Republicans, or Green Party. But again, the new people will make the change, and that will make us the 51st state. If not, what I plan on doing is I feel we should have a rally every year on Emancipation Day. It's the biggest civil rights issue we have. By doing so, what we end up doing is we had NAACP, National Urban League, Hispanic Organization, Youth, Religious, and DC City Council, PG City Council. By doing so, we're going to talk about democracy every year and how it's being deprived of us. And we preach it around the world, but we stop on the people that believe in it in the District of Columbia. And I still have been saying this for a while, but nobody's joined my fight. So why is that? Why is that? It's the strongest idea we have out there. Because again, they don't care. And we need to make a point. And Nate made a good point, but I did. I always said to envision that star to be 1/3 bigger to symbolize the District of Columbia. Nate made a good point. I read something about that. He said we should hang that star at around all our government buildings. And I think that's a good idea because again, you grow with ideas. You probably heard my 51st star thing and the flag, but then he grew on it with the flag by saying it at every state building. I mean, district building. Does that make sense? It's going to show that we are that 50% state. We want to be that 50% state.
Thank you. I gave you Miss Norton's time. That's by you.
That's her seat too, right?
Yeah.
I want to get a chicken right here.
Yes, Clint Eastwood with us here. But Lucy Murphy is with us. Give her a hand, Lucy Murphy. The voice of the struggle. You should be on The Voice or American Idol or whatever. Anyway, audience questions.
Yes.
Audience.
Go.
Yes.
This is a suggestion, and I'd appreciate a reaction to it. Of the 29 members of Congress who signed on to Eleanor's 265, 14 of them were recruited by the Statehood Committee of the Brookland Civic Association, as Johnny knows. I think the civic associations can do that kind of recruiting and lobbying and coordination with health, but we can go, I don't come in as a statehood person or a Democrat or Republican. I say, I live, this is my hometown, I'm coming from my neighborhood. Would the three of you react? And Mr. Stracuzzi, don't you find that amazing that 5 people you don't even know the name of got more people to sign on to Eleanor's bill than she did?
We'll start with Ms. Aiken, and we'll end with we'll start with Ms. Aiken. 1 minute.
Well, as I said, I think that what you're pointing out, volunteer labor can be very, very valuable. And I've gone to a lot of different groups throughout the city this election cycle. And then there's all the ANCs. When I was out signing up people to run for office, I met 3 or 4 really good people. And, you know, we need to recruit in the neighborhoods. And if I have this position, and to some extent even if I don't, I will be going to localized meetings, and I will, and if I have a chance to talk, I'll say, hey, we need you to help with lobbying. Do you have family in other states that could apply a little bit of pressure? I'm from New Jersey originally. I still have friends and contacts up in New Jersey. So, you know, all of these things are a possibility. And and I should say one other thing. Eleanor Holmes, Hilda Mason was fantastic, but the secret to Hilda Mason, not the only secret, but she had Charlie Mason. He was a tremendous help to her. I have Don Norton over here, and we will be fighting the good fight for many years ahead, I hope.
Thank you. You got money, Mr. White? Anyway, Mr. Stracuzzi.
All right. First of all, I'd like to say I do respect Ms. Norton for everything she's done. I don't think no woman throughout history can accomplish what she's done throughout the years. But she is no longer effective on the Hill. And we saw this year with the Democratic National Convention how she was shunned. And also on the Hill in the Senate part. Let's look at it realistically. She puts in a bill for us to merge the Ward 5 election. Passes the House, which is Republican, fails the Senate, which is Democratic. Then she has the Utah bill, passes the House again, which is Republican, and fails the Senate. The only bills that pass for Ms. Norton are the ones that are going to bring corporations in here, and we're going to give them stuff. Like if you look at our Southwest Waterfront bill, realistically, at paper value, when you see the bill, it's nothing. But when you look at the city council level part of it, you find out at this point, they want to lessen the insurance regulations for insurance companies, so they'll bring their corporate headquarters here. By doing so, it's just pushing more people out of the city. Because who's going to qualify for those jobs? Will all of us? Can we fit those jobs? Because working at a corporate level insurance company, your job is to make money for that insurance company so they can pay those payments out to those claims. So again, look at the people that are in office and what they're doing to take away our city from us. And again, at a corporate level, yes, they're going to give it to them. Why do they want to make the buildings taller? I assume because insurance companies want big buildings. That's an assumption. I mean, why do we have to get the pictures on the Capitol? Why? So film companies can come film. But again, what bills pass for the people? Well, how was she keeping us from working until 70? These are my, and why did Phil Mendelson add a budget autonomy bill as a referendum? Because why? He doesn't have faith that Ms. Norton can pull it off for us. She's been there a long time, 22 years. As Mark Clocken said, for 22 years she should be embarrassed. I give her for what she's done, but again, it's time for a new vision.
Dave Bennett Fleming.
Okay, so I agree with you. In the sense that our civic associations, our neighborhood associations should